I remember the Kuduk tribe. Kuduk is a word that means up the river.
And can you tell me about the place that we're at?
Happy Camp? That's, I imagine this was probably a Indian village right in this area at the mouth of the creek.
Is this
Never did look into that, but she's the one that would probably know.
Is this the place that you lived during the 1964 flood? Did you live here?
I lived in the house up there.
And that's it. That was in Happy Camp?
Yeah.
So how did you know that this storm was bigger than the regular storms that come through? I'm sure you see lots of storms living out here.
Well, it was, we got a heavy rain first and the river came up a little bit. Then it turned cold and we got about 3 foot of snow here. Then it turned warm and it rained on between the melting snow and the rain, it raised the river well high.
And what did you, how old were you during the 1964 flood? That was 50 years ago. I know.
I was born in 1941, so.
23.
Yeah, about that.
Okay. So you were 23 during the 1964 flood. So you were a young man. Did you have a family?
Yeah, I lived with my mother and father at that same house.
And what were you doing for a living during that time?
I've never worked. I just always lived on Social Security.
Okay. And what were your experiences? What do you remember of the 1964 flood?
We just used to drive around, up and down, and look at the level of the water. That's what all we could do. So.
And do you remember people losing their homes? Who that you knew lost their home?
Well, there's these apartments just on the other side of, downriver side of the Indian Creek Bridge back in there. You know, it got flooded in there. So, I mean, I knew people, but I can't remember their names.
I was reading in the paper there was a woman named Lena McCovey. Is she any relation to you, Lena? She lost her home during the flood.
Yeah, she was downriver, Yurok.
Oh, okay.
And I was married to a Yurok.
Oh, okay, okay. So what other things do you remember? You had a story that you saw that you had a newspaper clipping about. Can you tell me about that story?
It was a story written by a Forest Service person down at T-Bar. And he was telling about how the water came up so fast. He was trying to save the important papers out of that, you know. And every time he took a load to the car and put it in, and he'd go back to the station, and it would the water be already another foot or two higher every time. So he just barely made out. Then they said after the water quit rising, they went up that creek. There's a road, the T Creek, and there was some Forest Service buildings up there, and they said they lived in there because the Forest Service buildings down on by the main highway got flooded out. And he was talking about going in there, and they found a bag of potato chips that must have been laying there for 5-10 years. They said they ate it, it tasted all right. Things you eat when you're hungry, I guess.
Michael, I think you practically, that's about where you need to be. How long are you going to last like that, Michael? Okay, we'll see.
Keep asking questions.
So do Karuk people have stories about floods that they tell? Old stories?
I don't remember any of them.
Jen, Robert's got some rubbing issues on the mic.
Did your grandma ever tell you any stories?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Robert, because if we don't have good audio, we gotta
Yeah, we're going to need to fix the microphone a little bit. We have a little wind noise that's picking up.
Are the river too?
Probably not the river, because that particular mic will isolate the sound. This mic will probably pick up the river.
A little windscreen. We can probably.
And what we'll do is, depending on what sort of sound issues we have when we watch
Put it right in the middle there.
Well, I have to put this little screen on.
We have this little screen that'll, for some reason, it's
called a
picking up a little
windscreen.
bit of wind. You see this?
Sometimes that kind of takes some of that noise off it.
That'll keep that wind. It's kind of blowing past your mic.
Yeah.
People that lived when they lost their houses because but he knows names of people that lived with us when they lost their houses.
I'm just trying to keep the sun off you. We're getting the glare right on the side of your face, Casey.
Okay.
So I'm trying to keep the sun out of there.
Okay.
People lost their house. You said people lost their houses.
Oh, where's your big poof, poof, poof thing?
We're low budget here.
No.
Stores,
That's good, Mike.
the electricity was off. So they were
Am I out of the frame, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
because we had a lot of
Yeah, definitely. I want to ask about that. Okay. Okay. I
Okay,
might
what-
even have you come sit over here with me.
Okay, we're
if you want to because
Sure.
you'll hit on things.
Okay.
You know, like sit over here wanting to pull it out
So,
of him.
if you ask the questions, you just have to, after you ask the questions, be really quiet in between asking the questions and let him come to a complete stop before you ask the next question. Do you want to give it a try?
Yeah, well,
so-
do you want me to with you? And then
Yeah,
ask
why don't you
the
come over
question?
here
And then I could kind of coach him when
Yeah.
I know that there's something else.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be great. Come on.
Try that.
Come on and sit down here next to me. I gotta warn you, there's mosquitoes down here though. But they will all eat me, so you have nothing to
We're
worry
not
about.
going to be in
Is that a boat down there,
oh,
Kathy?
it's a helicopter going by over here, Casey. He's flying over there.
Oh.
We're waiting for him to go by, frankly.
It's either the Forest Service one or medevac
Oh.
because we live so far, and when people have heart attacks or something, they'll send in
We
a
were talking
helicopter.
about that as we were driving in here. I was like,
A red cross on the bottom of it would be medevac.
You know, if you have a health issue, and I said, oh, they fly you right
20 minutes.
20
Yep.
minutes. You're probably close.
Probably too far away to see.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
you
we
know,
can't see him, but we can still hear
when
him.
he had his,
Good, Jen, we're good to go.
strokes and seizures, they were the EMTs and the medical people, ambulance. They were there working. Wow. They saved his life.
Wow.
Okay, you guys ready to roll?
Good to know.
Here we go. Oh, try not to drop
Okay.
this on you. It won't hurt even if it does.
So tell me about when people lost their homes, some people came to live with you.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Oh, they just came up and we had lots of bedrooms and they moved in and we filled every one of them up.
Did you know the people that came in?
Yeah, of course.
Who were they?
I forget. I don't have a very good memory for names.
That's okay. That's okay.
Can we pause you for 1 sec? I'm sorry.
But
Jeff Tom, remember Jeff Tom was there? And then the brothers, Barney, maybe there was Melvin. Remember those two?
McDaniels,
Yeah, remember those? Melvin, what was his brother's name?
Alvin.
Melvin and Alvin McDaniels. And then let's see, who else did we have?
You know, we could move him closer so that Michael doesn't have to reach so far.
Want to try that?
Well,
Yeah.
if we moved him like 2 feet ahead, we probably wouldn't have this problem at all.
Maybe we should just do that.
Keith, is this thing locked? Is this locked?
Wait a second.
Okay.
Wait a second. Let me
Yeah,
get,
we may have to move back.
Let me get this.
He got that one.
I didn't
And,
do
you
any.
know,
Oh no, you're fine. There you go.
so
Just push him. Casey,
Where's
I'm going
that
to push your
wire?
head a little bit.
Okay.
wait a second. Let me just make sure that the mic's up.
Okay. Is he out of the sun now?
So where did the
There.
McDaniels live that they lost their house or they couldn't get back? I'm just trying to refresh
They
my
lived, the
memory.
people that moved to our house came out of the project over here.
That's what those houses were? The
Yeah,
the
that's
project?
what they called it.
That was where
So Michael, could you get his mic up under his shirt?
a lot of
sleeve?
people who worked for
and
the
then
mill
coming
lived down
out
there,
the
huh?
Okay.
So it was Melvin tell me when to stop.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Casey.
Tell him that he's going to go.
I'm going to put this up under your shirt if you don't mind.
Oh, I guess all right.
I'll be careful.
Well, I didn't do it because it's like I do the women and then I like to. I like to do the men.
I'll be careful because I know that you can get stuck
Have
by
it
this
kinda
thing.
go the opposite way.
I'm going to have to, yeah. There. something
What
there.
else did you want? I just kind of wanted to kind of
No, I think
back.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
you
good
were-
that you do that, Kathy.
You were touching on
Gotcha, man.
what else were you gonna?
experiences that he had
Gotcha.
during the flood, people that he knew who were affected by the flood, people who lost their homes, what was that like? You know, and like you were saying, people who came to stay
do you
with
want
him,
this
and what
one
was it
for
like
the-
to have all these different people staying there? Yeah,
That's where it gets real good.
yeah, that would be great. Okay.
Try it again. I just had knee surgery, so it's
Did
kinda hard.
you? Did you have?
Yeah, torn meniscus. Worked for the Forest Service for 32 years,
Oh my gosh.
climbing
That's what
around
you
these
get.
mountains.
Oh, I'll bet. Is that how you got to know? How did you get to know Jean and
Oh,
Jess?
yeah.
Jean,
O'Hara and Jessica Eden.
I was going to Humboldt State University. They had a play called Salmon Was Everything. Is
Oh
Everything.
yeah,
Theresa May was just, I just loved her. I took this class, I needed to get an A, and it was art, culture, nature. And I'm like, yeah, man,
Those are
I'll
my
ace that one.
things. That's great.
But
I'm
they
so
were
glad they
sweet.
hooked me up with you.
Too big.
That is
Hey,
wonderful.
take a look at it. Hey,
It was
Casey,
a-
can you
it
say
was a
testing for us?
pleasure
Testing.
doing that.
Give it a listen there.
Learning about it.
Say it again, Casey.
Testing.
Taking a theater class
Testing,
too
1, 2.
When I went to school.
You want me to
years
count
ago,
too?
but,
Testing, 1,
it
2.
was really different
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
than I'd ever
Gotcha.
experienced before.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're still rolling, right? So we don't have to resync. So could you tell me about the families that came to stay with you? How did you know they needed help?
Well, there were houses were flooded. And my mom would always like to help people, you know, so she went and ran around and brought them up.
And who were the people that came to stay with you? Do you remember their names?
No, I don't remember names. I have trouble remembering even my own name sometimes.
Me too. Me too. So, and when they came to stay with you, what was that like living with that many people in your home?
Well, it was kind of fun, you know, because there was no TV. And we got to all the board games out. We were all playing them. And the first time we ever had enough people around that liked to, that would play them.
How many people stayed at your home with you?
Was there about 8 or 9?
8 or 9 other people other than your family members staying with you. Were there other young people your age?
Yeah.
And that was fun.
Oh, of course.
So people like to play board games, but did they worry about having enough food?
My mom always had lots of food around. She used to like to can, you know, and preserve, make jellies and stuff, so she always had lots of it.
Did she
In
have
the store, they had a lot of food that wouldn't spoil because electricity went off and there was no cooling. So we got quite a bit of food from them, and you know, we ate real good.
Did your mom have a big garden? And did she preserve things from garden in the orchard?
Not too much. She did go out and get stuff like from orchards in the fall and preserve it.
How about fish? Did you get salmon?
Oh yeah, we always got salmon from the falls.
And did she can it or smoke it or both?
Both.
Yeah. How did she do that? How did she? What was her process once she got the salmon?
You just fillet them out, and if you want to put them in jars, you cut them into squares, and you push them into the jar, and put a teaspoon of salt on it, and close it down, and then you put it in the oven for a certain length of time, and everything comes out good if you do it right.
What about our smokehouse in the back?
Yeah, we got a big smokehouse in the back. Everybody's impressed. They're kind of jealous of us. We got such a big smokehouse.
How many salmon could you smoke in the smokehouse?
Oh, probably about 15.
So how much salmon did you usually have in your cupboards during the winter?
No, we'd probably fill the smokehouse once. And
Lots of salmon.
Yeah,
So you'd have a couple cases, huh?
yeah,
Grandma used to pick berries too, huh?
yeah. We used to cut the fish up into big chunks, you know, cut the fillets off and then cut the fillets into short chunks. My mom would put them in the smokehouse and we'd smoke it for a day or two to get the good smoke flavor into it. Then she'd freeze it. Then she'd take them out and bake them, and oh, they tasted so good.
I've never heard of people doing that, smoking them and then freezing them and then cooking them. That sounds like a good way to have fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you taste it, you know you get hooked on it.
I remember Grandma used to go get elderberries all the time and blackberries, and we used to have canned jellies and jams.
Yeah. She loved to make jams and jellies. I know my brother-in-law down in the Central Valley, he couldn't wait till we went down there to visit him at Christmas because my mom would take him big cases of preserves, and he loved his toast in the morning, you know, and with homemade jam on it.
Grandma used to make a lot of homemade bread too, huh?
Yep, she was made delicious. I was thinking about it this morning. Wish I had a big slice at the heel, you know, with lots of butter on it.
And so you had some of those foods set aside. Did you worry about running out of food during the flood? Did other people in your community were people pretty prepared for the flood? Had plenty of food set aside?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
Like I said, my mother was a hard worker, and and she knew what you'd need, and she always have plenty of stuff stocked up.
My grandpa used to go hunting all the time too, so we always had deer.
How did they preserve the deer? Did they can the deer?
I smoked it.
And I think we had some canned deer too.
Or froze it, either one.
What were your memories of Christmas? That was Christmas time of the year. What was that Christmas like?
Well, we had a lot of people at the house, so it was kind of crowded. It ruined a lot of people's Christmas, I know.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a party and a dinner that night with some of these foods that you got from the store and from your canned goods? Did you have Christmas dinner?
I don't think people was in a party mood at that time, so we just had a regular meal.
Good point. Yeah.
But my mom was a great cook.
It's good it seems like a lot of people open their homes to neighbors and friends who lost their homes during that time. Sounds like the best of people came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know after the flood, they had these people were going through the flooded areas and rescuing people. And they come up to the Sacramento Valley. It says the people were just sitting there waiting to be rescued. And they came up here and they came down to Happy Camp and they were shocked because everybody here was having a big party.
People here are pretty good at taking care of themselves.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a remote area, so, you got to be self-sufficient.
And it seems like we were talking to some Yurok people as well, and they said that it's part of Native tradition to take care of people who can't take care of themselves and to know who needs help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did that happen quite a bit?
Yeah.
Just kind of know who needs it. Yeah. That's good. It's a good thing for people to do. Good value to pass on. Yeah. We were thinking too that during the flood, because the people that lived here and the people that lived in a lot of the areas that in this rural area, there were a lot of ranchers and loggers and dairymen and people who were used to working with their hands and were good at problem solving. And we think maybe people did better here than people in cities do when they have a disaster. What do you think about that?
Well, You got to learn how to take care of your home and stuff, you know, so that they're more prepared for stuff like that.
Yeah, I think so. Other questions? What else?
Hey, Uncle Casey, remember when we were downtown and how much the floodwaters were down there, how deep they were in town? And then do you remember when the bridge in the middle of town fell down?
Yeah. Well, we went up Indian Creek, and there was a sawmill up there. And it had a deck of logs on the creek side of the pond, and the creek undermined it, and all those logs fell in the river. I mean, in the creek and come down. So we came down and went down to the Indian Creek Bridge, and there was a guy there with a crane, and he had one of those hooks that pick up logs. And he'd pick up the logs and lift them over the bridge. So he kept that main bridge from washing out. But the old bridge, right above it, it fell out. I was just getting ready to get out of the car to make a movie of the flood against the bridge, and it fell down just before I got out.
That would have been good footage to have.
Yeah.
What happened to the bridge after it fell down, the one in town? Did it just break up or did it float down?
It floated down, I think, against the other bridge, the main highway bridge.
And it got caught under there and then everything got jammed up, huh?
Yeah, and that's what kind of backed up the water into town. All those logs jammed up against it and made a little dam there, and it flooded the town.
So there was a race to get all the logs out from underneath that main bridge because that was one of the few bridges left, huh?
Yeah.
What happened to the bridges? So were we cut off from everybody?
I think we'd go upriver, but the bridge at the Clear Creek washed out, so we couldn't go downriver past that.
And upriver above Syad, the water went over the road.
Yeah.
That little sign on the rock that says 1964 flood.
Yeah.
So we were pretty much an island.
We were isolated anyway for a little while,
How long do you think that was?
about a week or so. And that's what those people were doing. They were coming to rescue us. They were clearing out the road and coming down here to rescue the people at Happy Camp.
That was the first time I'd seen big helicopters.
And they brought in those big double-roaded banana-shaped helicopters, and they took them up to the airport, and they unloaded boxes and boxes of clothes that they were going to give out to all the people that were lost everything. As far as I know, all that clothes are still up there at the airport. I heard somebody say they looked in one of the hangars up there, and it's just boxes of clothes all over the place in there.
Did they bring in food too?
They probably brought in truckloads of food later on back to the store.
Well, how many helicopters came in? Did they come in every day, or was it just one every once in a while? Because I remember the helicopters for some
I remember
reason.
two of them coming in at once. I don't know whether they come in two at a time or over a couple of days or not, but I remember them coming two at a time
And where did they land?
at the airport over here.
So the airport was in good shape.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it was way high above anything, so it wouldn't. I mean, town would have had to flood out before it flooded out the airport.
Yeah, so Happy Camp, the town itself, didn't flood.
Well, it got flooded because of the logs jamming against the highway bridge and damming up in there. It flooded back up into the lower town.
But your house was okay because it was up a little bit?
Yeah, we're on the upper level up there. I think all this area was flooded.
What did it flood down there? The elementary school? The post office? Do you remember what buildings got flooded down there?
Not really.
Okay.
Well, that's good. Good stuff. Good. You're a good sidekick here.
She's got a better memory than I do.
She's got a good memory. That's good.
So
It was-
did
sorry.
people know that it was going to flood? I mean, did they have any idea that this was going to happen? I mean, like old timers had been around here for a while, seeing the weather and then the snow, and were there people saying, you know, we're going to have a flood, or did
No,
it just
nobody
kinda,
said much about anything.
it just kind of started happening?
Yeah, they just sat around and watched to see how far it was going to flood or whatever.
Do you remember when the bridge went out and you saw it? Did it make a terrible sound? It sounds like it. I mean, it seems like it would just make an awful sound.
It just kind of sank down and went underwater.
It wasn't very dramatic. It just kind of sank down and went down the river. It didn't make a lot of noise when it went
Like
down.
I said, I was still in the car. I was going to get out and take a movie of it, but it went out before I could get out.
Well, in a way, that's good because you could have ended up on that bridge.
Well, we parked in a spot where I could take a picture of it, but it went out before I could even get out of the car.
Did your dad, Ernie, did he go out and help anybody during the flood time? He worked for the Forest Service then. Was he called out to do anything or to help with anything?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Do you remember people going back to their homes to try and clean them up after the flood?
I never went out much after the flood. I mean, we'd drive around and look at the river level before it got to its highest level, but after that we didn't go out much.
Yeah. That sounds good. Well, that was good. Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions anybody else would like me to ask? Always like to make sure because sometimes I get so focused I miss the obvious.
Do you think of anything that you want to add, Uncle Casey? Is there anything that strikes you about that time or your memory of it? Or
Well, I remember the water level at its highest was just about 6 inches below the bridge down here that goes across the Klamath. That goes over the Elk Creek.
so that almost took that bridge out too.
Yeah, it was only about that far below it. Just enough room for the logs to go underneath it without hitting it. Because if it would have come up higher, those logs would have hit against it and might have knocked it down too.
I think some people were surprised. They thought the 55 flood was the biggest flood they were going to see. Up here, was the 55 worse or was the 64 flood worse?
I think 55 flood was higher because we were living down there at my grandfather's ranch. And I remember the water level was just about ready to come over onto the flat where we were living. And the 64 flood got it all up and got about maybe 10 foot deep against our house and pushed it off its foundation and downstream a little bit.
So you've been through 2 floods.
Huh?
You've been through 2 floods.
Yeah.
2 100-year floods.
So 55, you were down around Somes Bar.
We were staying at the ranch at Rogers Creek.
And then you moved. So did the same thing happen down there? You guys were kind of isolated over on Rogers Creek, huh? Because you had to take the canoe across the river.
Yeah. There's no problem going across river in that dugout canoe because, I mean, you couldn't stand on the side of it and tip it over. It's so stable.
Did you worry about some of the lumber, though, that was in the water? Like, did you have to get around that?
Well, we didn't try to cross it until the river dropped down low enough and the driftwood quit coming down.
That makes sense.
Because you lived on the opposite side of the highway.
Yeah.
So anytime you guys wanted to go over to the Highway 96, you used to have to take that dugout canoe from the ranch to the highway.
Yeah. That dugout canoe is in San Francisco there at the, what's that building there? They show the different areas.
National or the
It's
Academy of sciences?
something like that. Anyway, it's the canoe is there. I went down there and looked at it a few years ago, so you know.
So the 55 flood, you guys still had a lot of food too then, huh? Because down at the ranch,
Yeah.
just a can and big garden.
We never ever ran out of food. We were kind of rich people because my dad worked for the Forest Service and my mom worked too, so we always had plenty of money to keep well dressed and everything.
But we gathered a lot of food though, didn't we? Hunting, fishing, canning.
Yeah.
So that's it? Anything else?
Anything else you want to say?
That you can remember about it that struck you, or
About the flood?
the 64 flood?
Or any stories people told you about the flood? Did other people tell you things that happened to them? Little stories?
Not too much. I mean, when the river floods like that, that was a good time for us because my dad used to know how to dip with a dip net. And you could go along the river, and wherever there's a big rock or something at the edge of the river and made an eddy behind it, you can dip through that eddy and catch steelhead out of it. So we always could get food.
Do you think, did it help the salmon? The flood, does that help salmon, do you think, or does it hurt?
Well, in the long run, I think it did because it cleaned up the gravel in the creeks and the rivers so that they have better success at spawning.
That 64 flood changed the landscape along the river corridor too, didn't it? It wiped out a lot of trees and a lot of that vegetation and just kind of opened up that whole corridor, huh?
Yeah. I mean, if you know what you're looking for, you can go down the river now. You can see the height of the 64 flood where it knocked the trees down to a certain level in certain places.
And yeah, some people lost their whole ranches. I talked to some people in Klamath who their family had ranches upriver from the mouth, and they lost all the land that they had that had orchards and gardens and animals and barns and houses, and they lost the whole thing. Like one of them said they had like 3/4 of an acre left out of this 8-acre parcel. So they lost their ability to help their family feed itself, and they lost the ability to be able to share that with other people in their community.
Well, where my grandfather's ranch is, the river comes down and makes a big horseshoe bend. And it was on the inside of the bend below this ridge. So the river went way around it, so it didn't undercut the ground or anything or wash anything away.
That's not the place that got swept off its foundation?
Yeah, well, that's our house. It was on the main level, so the water got clear up. My grandfather's house was way up back against the hill on the backside of the flat. And I guess the water got up to their place. The only thing that they lost, I think, was they had a stack of firewood and they all washed out.
That was in the 55 flood? Were they living down there on the ranch in 64? No, nobody was down there in 64, huh?
No.
But that's when the house, Ernie's house, washed away?
Well, it didn't wash away, it just got knocked out the foundation and moved downstream about 10 or 15 feet.
So both floods hit that house?
Just a 64 flood.
Oh, okay. Thanks for...
The 55 flood came up just to the edge of the flat and then it stopped. I remember it was raining hard and the river kept rising. All of a sudden it stopped raining and the river just started dropping almost immediately. Because we had a water pipeline that came across the river, and the water was hitting, about to hit and knock it out. And my dad was out there trying to raise the level of the pipe so it wouldn't wash out, but it stopped just in time.
When the house was knocked off the foundation in the 64 flood, did people try to save that house? Did they try and put it back on the foundation or put it on a foundation where it moved to? They just said that's it.
There was nobody living there after that.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to say, and that's it. I'm not going to try and say this.
Now, we were staying there because my dad was kind of helping his parents, you know, to take care of the ranch. And then we moved to Happy Camp because my brother had caught polio a few years before. And he couldn't get around very good, so my mom wanted to move to Happy Camp so he wouldn't have to live with some other people when he started high school. My other brothers, they come up and stayed with people. They didn't have to. I mean, their first time away from home, so they probably enjoyed that.
That's a beautiful place here, Happy Camp.
Oh, yeah.
See why it's called that. It must have been, you know, it's an obvious choice for a name.
I never appreciated it till I went someplace, then I stayed in Arizona for a while, and I came back, then I appreciated all the greenery.
Yeah, Uncle Casey was born in Somespar and lived down there.
I was born at home, December 7th, 1941.
Really? On Pearl Harbor Day?
Yeah, I was born about the same hour that Pearl Harbor got bombed. I was born 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Wow, that was an auspicious day.
Yeah.
So I think that we got it quite a bit. And if is there anything else you'd like to say about the flood or about anything that you would like us to record?
No, let me think. Well, I think there was only one bridge survived down below Happy Camp, and that was the one at Independence, across the river there. Well, there was one Independence Bridge. It was a new bridge that the Forest Service was building, and it was it survived the flood. It wasn't finished yet, you know, so nobody was using it, and everything was still there. They just finished it off, and now it's still there now.
It's kind of handy to have it after you lost all those other bridges.
Yeah.
That's probably nice. Do you remember the reconstruction of things after the flood? When they started rebuilding some of the bridges that got knocked out?
No, we never ran around that much to remember seeing them.
He's kind of moving into sunlight now.
But they rerouted the road, you know, if they got an area where they could build the road at least as high as the flood level got, so it would stay above flood level if it got that high again.
That's a good idea.
So they changed the road quite a bit.
They did that with some of those bridges they built in 1955. They thought they were plenty high after 1955, but then 64 came and knocked them out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only bridge that survived below here was the Independence Bridge, and then the one at Witchpeck.
Did that one survive, the Witchpeck Bridge?
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good. Well, I think we've got lots of good stuff here that we can use, and I think we're ready to hook you up if that sounds good to you, and put you possibly over on the bench. Well,
I just thought of one thing. When the flood came, 64 flood, if somebody got sick or something, how did they take care of people?
Well, they had a doctor here in town
Oh,
at the
Dr.
time.
Chambers?
Oh, I don't think it was Dr. Chambers. It was another one.
Okay, so we had good medical services during that time too.
That's a matter of opinion.
Okay. You just had to try not to get hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.